All right. I'm
We can't be friends anymore.
We are live, guys.
All right.
All right.
At least I hope we're live on YouTube.
The program's Cadmus.
Okay, I'll keep it in mind. Thanks, Hippie Daddy.
You're welcome.
All right. Anybody previewing the stream?
All right.
At least I hope.
Okay, I'll open it in YouTube.
Yeah, let's see if if everybody can hear me and everybody can hear the guests, because I'll be on a different audio stream than these guys. Sometimes we start talking and they can either hear me or they can hear you guys, but sometimes they can't hear all of us.
Hey.
All right.
Hello.
And just know anything you post in the Jitsi chat, of course, will be recorded on the stream because of the way Jitsi does its chat. I wish it was in a separate window where I could move it. Because you get a notification right here inside the main window, so Big Pod just let the whole world knows. Yeah, he loves Windows. Basically.
Yes.
So
I don't have a problem with that. It's all over Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, it's all over YouTube too. Pretty much every time you get in front of a microphone, you tell everybody about your love of Microsoft and,
I don't
Windows
love Microsoft. I just don't hate them. Big difference.
I am with Hip Dad on this one.
I am actually. I partially agree, Big Pod. Matter of fact, I recorded a video a couple of days ago. It'll be out in a few days, where I pretty much reiterated what you just said. I don't hate Microsoft. There are worse companies out there, much worse than Microsoft.
Not that. The reality is, if you actually look at history of Microsoft has changed in the last couple of years.
Yes,
a lot.
And while benefit of the doubt is still, while doubting them is still an option and possibly a right option, because again, just one change can make a huge effect. It's also reality is that they're a company that they'll work for their benefit, for benefit of their employees, benefit of their shareholders, not benefit of you.
Well,
I mean,
still, I don't care how Microsoft does their things in the background. I just use what works for each situation. For some situations, Windows works better than Linux. In others, in most situations, Linux works better than Windows. But in the few situations where Windows works better than Linux, why be an elitist and say, no, I refuse to use Windows because I am a hater, elitist bastard? No.
When you said there's a few situations where Windows works better than Linux, Stefan looked like he was about to lose it. So I think he needs clarification. What are we talking about?
Well, that's absolutely fair. How are you doing, guys? By the way, nice to meet you.
I'm doing great. Good morning or good afternoon or wherever.
Well, there's one particular reason. There's that occasional game you run on Windows because
that's always the reason.
Actually, that's the reason nowadays I run Windows.
Yes, correct.
I play Call of Duty, and Call of Duty doesn't work on Linux, especially the newer ones. So yeah.
I'm doing this solely in my dusty little chamber. Not bragging about it, but not hating about it. I think
it's just the elitist minds that I discussed this with the Linux experiment during the interview, 2.5-hour interview. But you cannot hate something. It's just if you hate something and for no reason whatsoever, it's not right. Like Windows, I have been using Windows, taking a break.
It's the Linux community. They hate all kinds of stuff for no reason. Have you seen the discussion about systemd and snap packages and app images?
It's the same lesson they need to learn. Whether it's systemd, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Windows, whether it's proprietary software in general.
Anything. Even Linux has its own
problems.
Not problems. It has its negative communities where people who try to act like they own the world, kind of minds. This is what's hurting Linux. this is what I discussed, that it's hurting Linux more than it's helping it. If you're not a realist and you take things seriously with Linux is going nowhere. It's sticking to where it is, and it's going to be the small little niche thing that it has always been. It's not going to move forward. Instead of acting like douchebags, help each other out. I went to multiple communities. I've been kicked out. I've been told multiple times, if you don't know how to do this or that, go to Windows. Stick to Windows, to your bullshit Windows.
Right.
Don't use Linux instead of helping. So,
I've mentioned this. Yeah, I don't hang out in any Linux communities at all.
Sometimes you have to.
I don't hang out in any chat rooms, Discord channels, subreddits. I quit all that stuff years ago, even before starting the YouTube channel. Now people know me, so I'd get even more just crazy behavior, for no reason. But even just normal people, like 10 years ago, I remember going to the Arch forums and getting trashed, going to the Debian forums and getting trashed for no reason. I just, you know what? I don't need those. I'm going to figure out my own problems.
Yeah, but
that's kind of how I became, know so much about Linux. Is I just quit asking people for help.
Sometimes
I'm not going to fool with it. Right.
Sometimes you can't. You need to ask a question somewhere to get an answer, because sometimes you get with Linux, it's not impossible to reach a point where it's a head scratcher. You cannot get an answer on your own, because the internet is full of contradictions. And the other on the podcast the other day, Matt from the Linux cast mentioned, it didn't work because I followed six different people's guides. So sometimes you reach a point where none of the solution works, so you have to ask questions. So instead of being trashed, help each other out.
But I don't think it's not going to be something that it ever improves, because that's just the nature of Linux being community oriented. People are people. There's just that's just the way people are. There's a lot of people.
Unfortunately, Linux is not going to be. It's not going to advance very fast.
I mean, what you're talking about changing Linux, we're talking about changing the world. We're trying to change people's attitudes. Good luck with that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the reason why Linux is gonna take longer than anticipated to get better. And with hardware manufacturers not being helpful either, preferring to create drivers for Windows rather than Linux, and throwing this into the hands of the community to come up with to reverse engineer Windows drivers and making them work on Linux. That's gonna take a while. So
yeah, but that is also a bit of a problem with Linux, is that we ourselves are our biggest users are our biggest problem, because a lot of people would have created software. A lot of companies would have created software and drivers for their products, or whether it be their software or drivers for their products. Problem is that if they have proprietary driver, they have proprietary piece of software, they know people will just start laughing them out of the room, essentially, Linux users, that since it's proprietary, it's not okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people, too, in the Linux community, community-driven products have more of this problem, because anybody can contribute, anybody has a say, so you've got to deal with the jackasses, right?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, the Linux community, they hate big corporate entities that do things the right way, like Red Hat or Canonical. I'm not saying they're always do things the right way, but they don't have these kinds of problems we're talking about, because they're a company, there's a CEO, there's one guy leading everybody in a direction without all the craziness. But then people hate that too. So you can't have it both ways, unfortunately. In the Linux community, we tend to hate everybody.
No, not only that. The developers in the Linux community, they create, for example, they help out by creating drivers for hardware that don't have drivers for Linux, but then they become the enemy they're trying to run away from. They make it work on a certain distro, but they don't make it work on other distros.
Yeah.
So they prefer they start having preference for Ubuntu. So they make them for Ubuntu or Debian-based systems, and they ignore all the rest, like Fedora, like Arch, whatever. So they don't help out in that area. So at this point, it requires another developer to take that project, to fork that project, and to make it without communicating with the original guy who created the driver. So because
but that complaining about people packaging for a particular package format such as Deb or RPM, you have to understand, years ago, a lot of times all you got was just a tarball. You know, you didn't get it wasn't packaged for any distribution.
Don't remind me.
So the fact that they're at least packaging it for some distributions just to help out particular distribution, that's great. I mean that's a plus.
Oh,
that's a plus, but it's package. Yeah, but
I miss make clean. Ooh,
yeah, we don't like that.
Yeah.
One thing I'm gonna say, it's about Linux in general. What I learned over the last bit is that honestly, if there isn't a company behind a project, let's call it a monetization strategy, I don't see that project unless it's like years old, trustworthy. I will think about finding an alternative that has proper monetization strategy behind it.
Well, every Linux distribution that is successful, as far as there's a company behind it or there's money behind it, even if it's just a little money behind it, those distributions are typically not seen in a positive light in the community. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, right? All of them. Like, I can't think of one that's, I would say, is a successful distribution that if you bring up their name on a forum, somebody's going to trash it for some reason.
It's insane why people think that, but they do. Yeah. In my opinion, let's take any kind of software. If I see that piece of software having some sort of proper monetization, where it is they have a subscription. It's a self-hosted server software. They have a server-side subscription where they have their own service. They host like a cloud service, or where they have some sort of how to say this, where they sell something, upgrade or something like that. To me, no matter what, that's much better suited software than any kind of just purely open source software, because that software is there to last, because there is a monetary reason for person to do it, and many times that means for a company to do it. So there is no buzz factor there. There is no other factors that would basically make software not viable in a long run.
Which brings me to a thing that I wanted to mention. Zero Linux being a very early on distro, I was thinking of putting it behind a paywall, like Elementary OS, where the user puts the amount they want to donate to get the ISO. But some of the users sounded their concerns, saying, but it's too early for Zero Linux. If you do that, if you put a single cent behind, put Zero Linux behind a single cent, they're going to see it as a negative. They're going to jump to the next distro that is completely free. So it's too early in the
well, if it's a situation where everyone, to even just test out the ISO, people would have to pay something, yeah, that would become a problem, because you get
eventually ask you, do you want to give? And you have a slider to select how much you want to give.
Yes.
Because you wouldn't get anybody reviewing your distribution for articles and videos and things like that. You know?
Here's the thought that I had. If they want it for free, there's the option to get it completely for free. You just have to build it, download the build environment and run the build script, and you're done. It's going to take 5 minutes to 10 minutes to build. But if you don't want to build it and you want the ready-made ISO for you, it'll be behind from 1 all the way from 1 to as much as you want. There's a slider. but there's no zero. There's no way to get the ISO for $0. It's 1 and above. But if you want it for free, there is the option. Just download it and build it. The problem is building it only works on Arch-based systems, not on anything else. So if the user was on Fedora or Debian, it will not work. So
that is a bad way of thinking about it.
Even if you put 1 penny on it, just the fact that somebody had to go through a payment process, 99% of the people that would have downloaded your ISO just won't even bother at that point.
Not even build it, even if I give them the option to build it.
No, definitely not.
They're not going to jump through. They don't want to jump through those kinds of hoops. They'll just go get something else. There's so many distros out there.
So many,
average,
so much.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
It has a lag. Sorry. The average user is not able to build. You have to think about that, and he will not be on Arch, and he wants to try your distro.
That's another. I'm just taking input right now. I'm not doing it. I'm just taking input from you guys and anybody that I know to see how should I go about these things, because I started a fundraiser a while back, 45 days ago, and I mentioned it here the last time we were on. But in 42 days, it had, out of the 900 euros, I only raised 185. So it's been stale for over 25 days. And the situation is not getting any better. Like last time we talked, the value of our currency was $1 was 32,000, and now today it's 42,000. It increased by 10,000. So the bills are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and I have not even raised 1 month worth bills. So the reason for deciding to put it behind a paywall is that reason. It's not because I want to charge for it. It's because it's the only way I think to be able to raise the funds, because donations in the Linux community, unless it's a big project, it's not going to work. For a project as small as Zero Linux, it's not working. No matter what you put, what reason you put behind it, even if the roof is falling above your head, they don't care. Who am I to them? You know. So I need to figure out.
Kind of the reality of you're putting your software out for free. People don't feel obliged to pay you for it.
Yeah, true. But I need to figure out a monetization option, a way to make money out of my project without having negative impact.
Increase your footprint on YouTube.
But that's what I'm doing. That's what I've been doing.
That's what you need to do. You need to increase your footprint on YouTube.
Yeah, I've been doing.
Because you have interesting subjects and stuff, and you have interesting content. You just have to start pushing it out there more, and make it so the what I call the MTV generation, but that's probably part of my generation, is we can only tolerate 10 minutes of input at a time. So
we have generation TikTok, 10 seconds.
Yeah,
at maximum.
Yeah.
Sorry for the rant.
For me, longer the video, the better.
Yeah.
I love watching those long sessions from conferences or where the professors talk to students like for hours at a time. That is my choice of video.
Well, I think one thing that I agree on with HipDad is that like starting a channel and starting to record and talk about your development work may be a viable way to increase reach. I think TJ DeVries from NeoVim is doing a great job at that as well. I think one part of the growth and the hype around NeoVim was that quite successful channel of TJ, and you might have or I'm certain you'll have the same interesting and good topics maybe behind the scenes as a distro maintainer. It doesn't need to be high quality. Just make sure the text is readable. No, I mean not like 4K 60 frames per second webcam footage. Just make sure the text is readable and don't die on production. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
If you look at some of the most popular channels on YouTube, he's right. It doesn't have to be good content.
No.
Some of it
not about good content. Not about. A lot of people think you need to make good content.
It needs to be interesting.
That's my problem. I try to make good content.
So I can talk. So I can talk about my cat.
Yep.
You need to make content that people see you're interested in. You have fun doing it. Especially at the start, you need to make content that you radiate enjoyment out.
More than subscribing for the content, they subscribe.
Yeah,
I enjoy.
And you want to.
When I did the
that comes after.
When I did the meetup with Nick, he was like, after we stopped recording, he was like, "You got a knack for interviewing because your questions were so different from the usual questions. Why did you use this? Why do you use Linux? What desktop environment do you use?" I asked the right kind of questions, and they were very interesting and varied. So he was like, that was a breath of fresh air. I loved the questions, and I enjoyed talking about everything. We need more people to vary the questions, not copy other interviews and ask the exact same questions over and over and over again.
Well, there's so many people. There's literally thousands of YouTube channels that are in the Linux space, free and open source software space. So you could do collaborations with practically anybody, because almost anybody, hey, you want to do a collaboration, a live stream or interview, almost always they're going to say yes.
Yeah.
Because, people enjoy just chatting with somebody about stuff they're interested in, like Linux and open source software.
So far, I was with Chris Titus Tech, Brody, the Linux Cast, the Linux Experiment, and one last one, I forget who it was, but 5 people so far. And that was in the span of 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah, I would just keep doing that because, that'll get you out there. One of the things with doing collaborative stuff with other content creators is it introduces both of your audiences to each other. Because you'd be surprised, most people don't subscribe to like a million channels in the same niche. They'll subscribe to 1 or 2 Linux channels, but they don't know about everybody else. You'd think they do, but they don't.
Yeah. Maybe once I get a decent mic, I will get you on a collab.
Yeah.
DT.
Yeah, I'm always around.
Yeah, so maybe once I get a decent mic, because this is not working.
I recommend something like I have. This is Shure S758. It's
I'm gonna use my dad's $3,000 XLR mic. I just need an XLR input. That's the only. I don't want to pay money. I don't have money to pay. That's the problem.
No.
So I tried to.
I found you have to invest in something to make money.
I found the Blue Yeti. I found a Blue Yeti microphone online that comes bundled with the arm and the filter and all the shenanigans for $280.
Yeah, that's way overpriced.
Yeah,
way overpriced.
If you want good, you won't go lower than that, really. This thing costs something close to that, but I bought microphone, arm, the interface, all of it.
Yeah, it's $200 too much for me. So I'm gonna use my dad's. I have an external M Audio FireWire card. I'll figure out a way to get a FireWire card, PCI card or PCI Express card or some sorts. But it's cheaper than having to buy the whole shenanigan.
Yeah.
So, but once I do,
I've got a Blue Yeti that I haven't used in a long time, and I would send it to you, except
Lebanon.
The reason I don't use it is it's kind of has some issues with the port, the little micro USB port that connects to the microphone. It's loose and it tends to short sometimes.
Okay.
So it's not a great.
Well, plus your tariff, your tariff is probably just as much as.
No, it's not about the tariff. It's Lebanon, and it will never arrive. They will either throw it away or just steal it. Our customs officers here, they're less than honest. So,
right. Do you ever have auctions in your area? Any kind of auctions, like when businesses go out of business? Do they have auctions?
Okay. No, they just throw everything in a landfill.
Well, you're probably
cool.
The cheapest way to go, since you already have a microphone that you said you could get.
Yeah.
Getting a audio interface. I mean, there's really cheap audio interfaces, and you could probably find one used.
No, we have the M Audio external not mixer. It's an external audio card, but the problem is it connects via FireWire. It's called M Audio FireWire 410. We got it back in 2004 for a professional project, studio project. But I need to figure out how to connect it to my system that doesn't have FireWire, since it's an obsolete kind of thing. It's not obsolete. It's only used today for cameras, but.
It'll probably cost you about as much as a good 2-port XLR audio interface.
I found a card here that costs around $20. It's a PCI Express by 4 card, the short ones that you connect on your motherboard.
By one, if the short is by one.
Okay, that one. And it has 2 FireWire ports. I only need one.
I'm gonna tell you a secret. A good audio interface with 2 ports costs $30 more. Like a really good one.
You mean the card or the audio card or the interface?
Interface. You just have an interface. What I got is 50 euros. It's USB, completely powered by USB in it.
Yeah,
it's
we got one for $50. It's an M Audio Mono. It's called M Audio Mono. It's got only one XLR input. That's all I need. So I might get that one. It's USB, but what I worry about is that USB is not very. Some professional people say it contains a lot of static.
Reality is most professional level things that go on to computers nowadays are USB.
Okay, so
you need, just don't buy USB 2, USB 3 at minimum.
Yeah, use a USB 3 and don't intercept with a powered hub or something, because those are the devices that cause interference.
I was going to mention.
It's electrical interference they're worried about.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, because I have a hub, an 8-port hub right in front of me.
Yeah.
So you're saying don't use that. Connect it directly to the case.
Yeah, directly to computer. Yeah. And use motherboard ports, not the front ports.
That could be one of the other reasons that's causing the echo, and the hum hum in the background, because on the podcast with the Linux experiment, I was as I am connected now to the front case ports.
Always use back ports.
I cannot reach them because the case is in a corner. And
that can be a problem sometimes.
I cannot reach.
I can tell you right now, those front ports are
crap.
Insanely bad. Plus, the cabling to get them to the motherboard is long and insanely flimsy.
Yes,
it's not that great cabling
and not shielded at all.
Yeah.
Yes,
if you may also recognize those those cables that has such a small like tubular thing around it on both ends. That's a magnet, and that also does magnetic shielding.
That explains a lot, because I've been using the front port on my case.
Now, save what I like to do, because I've got a million USB ports on the workstation at the office, and everything I've got is wired. The keyboard, mouse, everything, the cameras, for the video inputs and everything. You know, the important stuff goes in USB 3 ports.
Yeah.
On the motherboard, And the stuff that doesn't matter, like keyboard, mouse, and all that crap, that goes in just the garbage ports that are in the front, on the top, wherever. but the good ports gets the video and the audio.
Right? Yeah, I agree. 100%. I should look into it, since I'm going to start doing this full time now. I should invest in higher quality input devices.
And usually also you can go dumpster diving for those cables. I don't know. I pulled an imperial ton, not a metric ton of cables out of dumpsters for USB. Just try it.
Good luck going to our dumpster here. Okay. You would die while breathing.
Okay.
And that's another thing. If you're using USB like extension cords,
don't use those.
You can have so many issues with those. Because I'm like Stefan. I find them all over and collect them, and a lot of times those cords will be crappy or have shorts in them.
Besides,
sometimes just swapping out the cables will.
Besides charging devices with these extension cables, you can't do shit.
Yeah, I have one big extension cable which is made out of big other extension cables, and the only thing it's plugged into one charger, so I can charge my phone however I turn.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do.
Because
depending on how long the cable run is, sometimes that can negatively affect things too. Especially with microphones, you don't want to run like 50 feet of microphone cable somewhere. Well, that's a bad idea.
Well, I have run a far farther microphone cable. Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. While I have a relative knowledge of how much 50 feet is.
It's a lot. Well, it's a lot.
I'm in Europe, so that's going to be 15 and a quarter meter. I've run 50-meter cables.
Yeah. For microphones, it's different. For microphones, some microphones like the one BigBot has, some of them come with a 200-foot cable.
Yeah,
that's not a problem. The problem comes with the connector on the system you're connecting to. That's why they invest in mixers.
No, mixers, not exactly.
Or DACs, as they call them.
Yeah, DACs are. You know why you buy DACs? Because you need to have your computer doesn't have a high enough level output for most, or input for most microphones. You don't have phantom power. You don't have yada.
Right.
And the audio quality for output also it gets better with DACs.
Because they are better. You have better what they're called. I don't remember right now, but you have better things in there.
Yeah.
Fun fact: I've been in proper production for where it be running marathons, where it be different things here. I can tell you right now that I run so many cables, so many cables. At the end of the day, I need to remember the day when we had long runs to cameras, and we had SDI cables, and we had cameras that take 4 SDI cables because they had bigger than just 720p on SDI.
You're talking about my childhood. I spent all my teens with my dad, because he's a commercial producer. That he used to be a commercial director for commercials. I used to be on set with him all the time, and I used to see people in the back end dealing with mixers and dealing with all that camera equipment. I spent entire teenage years with my dad doing that stuff.
Well, I was a part of professional production. I'm paid part, but yeah, I was
unpaid because I was just being there with my dad.
School. It was part of my school.
Yeah, I was just being there with my dad, and I learned a lot. But
Stefan, what have you got going on there?
Well, I
horrible massive cables.
I just grabbed into it, tore into it, and realized, oh no, I gotta sort all of this and rewire it.
Is there like a international? Is there an international cable management day? Because I think we need one for Stefan. One day a year.
Every guy needs that.
Same here. I have no cable management either in my cases or anywhere. if you look at my cases, they're just cables dangling all over the place. When I watch Linus Tech Tips do all the cable management, and
oh my goodness,
I cry because I look like there and I see cables all over the floor.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
So
I've got cables running everywhere. At my office, you guys never see behind the monitors and because I've got a huge desk that everything's sitting on.
Oh, I
it's
see.
6x3.
No,
but
I monitors.
Ooh, I have got a million cables running all over the place, and I have no idea which cord is which because I haven't got them marked in any way.
Ironically, the only place where I don't have cables is behind the monitors because I have only 3 cables behind or 4 cables behind monitors. 2 to plug in either monitor, so 4, and 1 cable, so 5 cables that plugs into my laptop, so I can charge it and have Ethernet through a hub.
Well, I've seen DTs behind the monitors when you shot once and you were showing behind your monitors, and it caused me anxiety because I saw all the dust on your case.
Yeah,
my
case is actually this case and that one at the office do have these nifty little magnet fronts, which do make things nice. I've got one on the top and one on the front. I just pull them off, blow them off, put them back on.
Yeah, well, my cases are very hard to get to. If I get to the lower case, it has a story. The lower case, my friend got it for cheap. It's one of those LianD cases that fits 16 drives.
Yeah.
He got it, but during shipment, it got damaged. It got bent out of shape. So he used it for a short while, and then he saw that I was building an HTPC. He gave it to me. He gave it to me just outright. He was like, I have this case I'm not using. It's a little bit bent. Go use it. So I put it here. It's at the bottom, and then the main computer's case is on top. So I got 2 cases, one on top of the other, and the backs of these cases are facing the other end of the desk. If I move this desk, it's so flimsy that it will go in pieces. So I do not dare move the desk, and I cannot reach. As a result, I cannot reach the back. So if I want to plug anything in the back, I have extension cables coming to the front, so I can use. But I cannot plug a microphone into these because the distortion will begin. So I need to figure out a way to plug the.
I think that your echo isn't a hardware issue. I think it's where you're broadcasting from. I think it's the room causing it.
No, because it's echo of headphones.
It's the headphones bleeding into the mic because this mic is very short. It's very close to the headset. I did a test yesterday and I confirmed it. When I lower the volume of the guest, at this point the guest was just a YouTube video playing. When I lower the volume of the YouTube video to 15%, barely audible, the mic will not pick up the audio. As soon as I raise it to 20% and above, it starts picking up on this mic.
Another thing I just thought of, it's a solid frame for a mic.
Yeah, it's a piece of plastic. It doesn't move.
That's a problem as well.
Yeah, I cannot do anything.
You need good microphones all have a metal just shielding around the cable that is flexible. Because even through that plastic, sound will vibrate through.
Yes, and this headset, I don't know how much it is because it's part of a combo that comes with a keyboard, a mouse pad, a mouse, and a headset, and that combo is $50. So this must be like $5.
Yep.
Big Pod, I've been wanting to ask you something because I made a video a couple of weeks back about something I didn't know existed, and I'm kind of disappointed you didn't tell me it existed. And that was the deb-git script to install those third-party proprietary programs on Debian. Why didn't people tell me that existed?
I installed that the other day. I started that.
I don't know why I didn't tell you.
That is the most useful thing I've ever seen for a Debian-based distribution, and I did not know that existed until like a viewer emailed me and it's like, hey, you know about this? Like, nope.
It was on somebody's broadcast. That's where I saw it.
What does it do? What does it do?
It installs.
It's a package manager sort of for For all the programs you don't have in standard repositories, you can install them through that. It has
it's basically I think it's a bash script or maybe a Python script.
It's a bash script.
Yeah.
Don't.
Whoever maintains it, they have a list of all these third-party programs that are not in the Debian repository. And the script will go and grab the package and install it for the deb pack. So it's all binaries. It's not building from source.
Oh yeah, and I remember you talked how it's easy to contribute because the script is so easy. It's just
Debian doesn't have any non-free software in its repository. So going and grabbing something like Discord, for example, if you needed to meet somebody on a Discord call, you got to jump through some hoops to go get Discord on Debian. But now deb get install Discord, boom.
Yeah,
I've
got the
yeah.
It's made by King of Bash scripts.
It is.
Martin Wimpress.
Well, I was about to say your old buddy, Martin Wimpress.
That guy makes everything with Bash. Like everything.
So I don't blame him. So do I. That's the only thing I
use what you know. Right?
Well, he knows quite a bit more than just Bash. It's just his thing. He once made a game in Bash.
I know somebody who wrote a 500-page novel in Bash.
There are actually games from way back when that people wrote in Awk, of all things.
Mm-hmm. I did just a short time ago. I had to merge and migrate unstructured CSV data, and I had an entire department laugh at me, but my program worked in the end. So,
did they put in controller support?
No, it's been layers or slices of 3D prints.
He has layers. He has controller support for playing with controllers.
Okay, since we're talking apps, who started migrating slowly, albeit slowly, to flatpaks here? I have.
Okay.
No, you migrate to Windows.
Tell us about it then, because you're the only one.
No,
you guys know I do have a whole bunch of app images if I want some.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to mention it, because I was waiting for you to mention app images. App images are not bad, but they're annoying to update.
I do have flatpaks installed. I do have some snaps installed. I've got all three installed, but typically, like if I'm trying to reduce, because I have so many packages installed. And you guys know how Arch updates, right?
Yeah.
There's so many updates. I've gotten to the point now where, especially for things that I don't want to update all that often, because I don't want GIMP to break on a bad update or Kdenlive to break on a bad update. I've OBS and things like that. Just app image everything.
Well, app images are interesting, but they're hell to update. But flatpaks have proven, as far as I'm concerned, they're proven to work 100% of the time. So far, I've been using them for 2 months, and via my tool on Zero Linux now, we offer more flatpaks over regular packages.
Well, it'll depend on the use case, because we're using the app images to not update was the whole point. I don't want them to update. If I wanted them to update, I'd just install stuff through Pacman.
No,
but I'm trying not to.
You have the choice not to update the flatpaks. You just don't run the flatpak update and keep them at whatever version you want. But for me, flatpaks, I went on, for example, on a distro hopping spree for a few days, where I tried a lot of distros on virtual machine. I tried Nobara, for example. Everybody is on about Nobara. Nobara is great. Nobara is awesome. Nobara. It is, but it uses SE Linux in the background, which causes flatpaks to take ages to launch, because SE Linux has to scan the container every time you launch the application before it launches it. So
I'm not a fan of SE Linux. It's stupid.
Yeah. So, but
it makes sense on a server, just not on a desktop.
Yeah. So for me, for example, the flatpaks just work. And especially now with the message that we just received like a couple of days ago from Arch that Python 2 Python 2 packages no longer exist on the Arch repositories, but there are some packages still rely on Python 2. as out of
There
date.
will always be packages that, I mean, that's with everything. You're always going to have those packages that never received any kind of updates. They're no longer maintained. At some point, the world has to move on.
Those should be evicted from repositories.
Exactly.
Right now, if not 2 years ago.
And Python 2 lives in the hour and is Gentoo patched. So whoever has an old script can use this one.
Yeah. So what I love about flatpaks, if they rely on something that's been discontinued, for example, they keep it around and keep the application running. So you're not dependent on Arch anymore. It's a container,
and it doesn't live in normal namespace, so you don't get all the security vulnerabilities from it.
Yes. So I'm preferring Flatpak these days, and I can use the same packages on whatever distro I'm on, be it Fedora, Debian, Arch, whatever I'm on. I just go to FlatHub, install the app, done. I don't have to worry about what packages each distro has on their PPAs or repositories or whatever. So Flatpak is growing in popularity, and for a good reason. That's what I'm saying.
Honestly, some software that I use way too much, I actually package myself as a Docker container.
The problem is a little bit, if containers getting too big and you start to bundle every single software of a Linux system, you the manufacturers of hard disks will be very happy, basically.
Yeah.
There's a reason for shared libraries.
A reason for shared libraries is legacy, nothing else. In my opinion, only thing that should be shared is glibc or MuSL, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean,
drivers.
There's no way you.
glibc is questionable because
and even glibc is questionable. You should, if you need a specific version, you should package it yourself.
That's what I did.
You should bring it yourself with the program.
But there are limitations to what you can package with Flatpak.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't package a window manager.
No,
Flatpak.
No. It's just applications. It's just applications. I'm not talking about desktop environments or anything.
So you're still gonna need another package manager to install the stuff that Flatpak can't do. So
in my opinion, the best package manager would be a package manager that essentially installs everything in a specific context.
Yes.
Kind of like Nix does, but probably using proper containers, not whatever magic they pull.
Well, I haven't experimented with Docker because it's not something that I've needed to do. But doesn't Docker work well with Nix? I know a lot of the Nix guys.
It does.
Yeah, that's one of the big selling points is if you love Docker, use Nix.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I personally still find Ubuntu better than Nix. And I do a lot of work with Docker. Like Docker is my job, essentially.
Well, I mean, Ubuntu being obviously primarily a server distribution, and they do a lot with Docker. That makes sense why you would choose Ubuntu for something like that.
But why do you think Fedora is gaining ground these days, as opposed to and Ubuntu losing ground?
Mainly because there's some people that are promoting it, nothing else. And Fedora.
Yeah, I mean, is Fedora really gaining ground? Fedora is still Fedora. It's the same as it was a year ago, 5 years ago. I mean, it's still
the same crashy mess.
And to be honest, Ubuntu is still the same distribution that it was.
And that's actually a good thing.
They haven't changed at all. Right?
There was a point in time I regretted basing my distro on Arch because Grub, glibc, and glibc again issues arising all in the same couple of months. So glibc for breaking easy anti-cheat, then Grub issue, then glibc for us builders breaking our ability to build our distros. I'm like, Arch, are you on crack?
Well, that's
the problem is different. Arch is rolling. So
as far as Fedora gaining popularity,
that's why containers are good for.
Like you may see that with some video content creators, or maybe more articles appear about Fedora.
Yeah.
But as far as like normal Linux users, I'm not talking about nerds.
Yeah.
You won't find anybody running Fedora.
Let's remember
like your grandma's not running Fedora, right?
At the end of the day, Ubuntu is a couple of times larger than all other distros combined.
It's been around longer.
Not just that. Reality is that the numbers of how many installs are there are.
I think Fedora is gaining popularity with the nerd crowd, but the normies. The normies they're not going to run something like Fedora. They just
of those 4% of Linux desktop users are Ubuntu. Most of those 4%.
But I think the reason Fedora is starting to gain ground among the normies is because of Glorious Eggroll's spin. Glorious Eggroll's spin is called.
A normie wouldn't know who Glorious Eggroll is. Like I really don't know much about Glorious Eggroll. I've heard the name, and I'm a nerd in this space, right? I know who most people are.
No, I mean, in the gaming realm, when somebody says I want to play games on Linux, what's the best distro? Only Nobara is being recommended.
No.
Most people will tell them use Arch, use Manjaro. That's what most people say because
I think you've been caught up in some of the hype.
Talk about Ubuntu as a third option because it's Ubuntu and everything works on it and everything has.
Yeah, but on Ubuntu to get games running, you have to do a lot of work.
No, not really.
No. I agree with Big Pod.
I've run games on Ubuntu Mate for a long time. This computer started as Linux only desktop, and I played games on it. Only reason I switched to Windows was because of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. The new one.
The only person I've ever seen really have a problem with getting Steam to run properly on Ubuntu. There's this guy named Linus.
No, we don't want to talk about that.
It's not. Even he doesn't have that much problem. If we're honest, you know who has the biggest problem with running Steam on Ubuntu? Chris Titus Tech. That guy has problem. That guy has problems in general.
Well, yeah.
Let's be honest.
The reason why Nobaro is called Nobaro is because no. I don't want to use it ever again. No.
And let's return to Fedora. I know why Fedora is becoming so popular because people are talking about it, nothing else. People are talking about it. And there's a lot of people who are raving about it. Let's just say my test laptop, which is the old computer I used to have before this desktop. You all know what I used before, like a pretty good laptop. It's sitting right there, crashing with Fedora all the time because it's so crashy. Fedora's biggest claim to fame is I know how to crash a lot.
Yeah, well,
that was the reason Fedora existed for a long time, was to be bleeding edge, to be a test ground,
to be a crash fest.
Yeah, right. And that's.
I don't understand how people can use it because for me it crashes all the time.
I kind of fell into the hype of Nobara and installed it on a separate SSD. I couldn't use it for more than a week because I rely on flatpaks. I grew to rely on flatpaks a lot, and with SE Linux killing the vibe, I was like, I'm done.
Well, the thing about Fedora is it still has the same problem it had when it was Red Hat back in Red Hat 3. Is you go to install a package and it tells you all these dependencies, a long list of like 12 to 30 of them that has to be installed before you can install that package. And it still happens. It happened in Nobara.
Yeah.
You're talking about getting into a dependency hill?
Yeah.
Yes. That's why I'm a Deb fanboy. I'm sorry.
I hold my personal record of crashing a Linux distro with Fedora. I crashed in less than 24 hours. And I'm not talking about crash like a reboot. I mean crash that it crapped its pants, threw them around, and decided I'm not going to work anymore. It was an implosion.
I've never had a distro completely crap the bed on me that quick. Gen 2, but that's not a real distro.
But I had it happen when the grub issue started.
Anything I other than Fedora to use. And I do exactly the same thing. I install packages, and that's about it. But NVIDIA drivers. Of course, NVIDIA drivers are a pain in Fedora. Actually, 3 times more pain than on Arch, on Gentoo, on anything else.
Yeah,
100%. Then it worked. I rebooted it a couple of times. I shut it down. I went to school. I came home. I started my laptop back up.
Well, that was the problem with Linus Tech Tips is when he was trying Ubuntu for a gaming distro is getting the NVIDIA drivers installed. He was trying
to... He didn't have a problem with that. He was installed correctly. What he had problem was Steam. And that wasn't a problem with Ubuntu. It wasn't a problem with... Anyway, that was a problem with Pop! OS, being Pop! OS having no QA, and being, well, Pop! OS. They decided to have a dependency that because it was updated by Ubuntu, because Ubuntu updates all stuff like systemd all the time. The Steam somehow relied on specific version of systemd because that version of systemd wasn't installed. Their version of GNOME didn't like that. Didn't like that they wanted a new version, older version of systemd, so it wanted to remove itself. Which then, because he didn't read, because who actually reads in today's age?
Yes, do as I say.
It's nobody. He typed.
I actually wasn't talking about that video. I was actually referring to a much older video he did where he was actually on mainline Ubuntu and he went and tried to install the NVIDIA driver by going and downloading it.
Oh,
no. That one.
I've done that as well. I'm going to be honest, I've done that as well. So.
No way. Don't.
But they've got that little window that pops up. Would you like to install your proprietary drivers? You click OK, Big Bud. You don't go and download something.
Again, how many people in today's day and age actually read things?
Nobody.
And hint is nobody. Absolutely nobody. I have enough anecdotes about that.
That's why we as YouTubers, we kind of shine, because when they don't want to read, they just watch a YouTube video telling them doing exactly as the text says, which they don't want to read. So they prefer to watch someone else do it on a YouTube video instead of reading. So I'm like, okay, that's why we are starting to gain anything related to Linux on YouTube is growing, because they don't read, they watch.
Yep.
I have so many anecdotes about people not reading stuff. Like, for example, my classmates, I was in school, like we were doing Linux, so reading was a requirement essentially. And we were trying to install server stuff. We were some server dashboard, and a professor made a documentation how to do it. Yeah, yada yada. Everything was well documented. I still am impressed by how much documentation he prepared for every lesson. And they just skimmed it and did the commands, and then nothing worked. If commands actually worked, and then it was Primoz, come help. Yes, okay.
It's like the Arch Wiki. I don't read.
They just don't. They didn't even input commands correctly.
Do you guys really read the Arch Wiki? I don't. I look for the command to enter and like the stuff written above it. Yeah, I don't. I just I paste this in the terminal, see what happens.
First part I read the intro. And then
unless it has a big like warning flag or something in front of it, basically, hey, please read this. I skip it.
No, I read everything on the page on the Arch Wiki, but I don't understand anything they're talking about. So I say that was a good science fiction story. Now, how to fix my issue?
And then I installed their web dashboard and just entered the IP address and port into the browser.
The web app.
They asked me, how did you know the right port, the right IP address? And my answer was, I did it here and here.
Here and here. Okay.
Yeah.
I did want to mention one other really neat package management tool. We talked about Git, which was amazing. That was probably the second best tool I discovered this past month, behind the Arch to App Image tool. Now that was a Python script that takes any Arch package that's found in the Arch core repositories or in the chaotic AUR, and it packages it up as a app image automatically.
He's talking about the app.
Yeah, and it's not everything works.
Not everything. Yeah, but I tried a few, and I think 90% of what I tried did work as expected.
But yeah, those are great concepts, but I don't know how further than that they're gonna get. If they don't.
Well, I think it helps people that want to get into packaging. Well, any package format. There's always a learning curve. It's like, especially with these containerized package formats.
Yeah.
That you have to package the dependencies. People are kind of confused where everything goes, especially with complicated programs. And I think if a script can automate the process a little bit for people, or at least get it close enough to where, you know, it's most of the way there, I think it's a great tool. I think I think you'll see a lot more packages now on like App Image Hub than were before, because now pretty much anybody can package things.
Yeah,
for the most part. Like I said, some things probably won't work with the script.
Yeah.
But the script will probably get better. It'll probably get to the point where almost everything...
If it gets contributions, if it gets the right amount of contributions, that is.
Yeah. Because literally almost every program imaginable, free software or proprietary software, will be found in some of the Arch repositories, whether it be the AUR or the standard repository. So if you can just convert all of it to app images, boom. Great. Now you can't, well, obviously you can't do everything, because just like we talked about with flatpaks and snaps, like you couldn't have a window manager as an app image or a login manager and things like, you know, a lot of the...
No, none of that.
Why not?
You can't, because those are things that attach to the system.
They don't. That's... it doesn't. Oddly enough,
At the end of the day, you could, if you actually understood how they work, you could, because the reality is, at the end of the day, what they are is just
the only
programs.
The only window manager I've seen somebody attempt to package as an app image is Emacs, and it does work as an app image.
Yeah, reality is, at the end of the day, as soon as you can start it before the desktop, so before X or Wayland, it should be able to work as a app image, as a snap, as a flat.
There's more stuff you couldn't package as a container. You couldn't package your display server.
Technically, you could package anything.
But the kernel? I mean, where are we going with
besides the kernel, because that's the first thing.
You can't do the init system.
Init system? Yes. Possibly, you would need some sort of init system first. Some sort of tiny script that initializes the virtualization, the containerization, the virtualization system.
You're scaring the kids, Big Pod. You're scaring the children.
That's the real situation.
But the problem with
I work with containers.
But with app images, every time you launch them, they have to extract, then launch. Extract.
Okay,
then
and that just means
but they can be automated. There are tools that automate that for you.
Yeah, but
matter of fact, when you go to the App Image Hub now, I think on the main page, as soon as you open it, they tell you to install the App Image Launcher before you even start downloading any app images. And once you have the App Image Launcher installed, anytime you open an app image for the very first time, it's going to ask you to integrate it and run it. And then it creates that .desktop file. It'll always appear in your menu systems. You'll never have it.
App Image Manager. It integrates into. I used to have it on Zero Linux by default, but I no longer do. But what it does is exactly that. Whenever you double click an app image, it asks you, and it goes into your home directory applications folder. And but the problem I have with that application is it keeps the weird naming scheme. Like if a name is called Discord, it would be Discord underscore a whole string of numbers. That's annoying.
Yeah, but probably because you can it's weird because what's the same with snaps and flatpaks. So as app images, you have these. You can have multiple versions of a program installed.
Yeah.
So that's why it has that hash string, or sometimes it'll have a version number or a date. It's because you can have 15 different versions of a program, of a single program. And
the way I see app images is the same thing as Windows portable apps. It's
that's what they're trying to be.
Yeah.
Actually, what the creator of app image, I think he's a Mac user. He's trying to do things the way Mac OS does. Yeah.
That's what I like about Apple. Just drag and drop into applications folder, and there's another thing that I like about. I'm talking not Apple. I'm saying the Apple applications.
The UX is horrible.
Oh, I could see this going badly as soon as he said that's what I love about Apple.
No, not Apple. Sorry, I have to rephrase. Apple applications.
You're talking about the Mac OS. Really, what you're talking.
What you're talking about is their UX.
No, virtual images, the images,
the applications themselves. When you drag and drop them into the applications folder, the applications are containers.
Yeah.
They're sandbox containers. That's app images, basically. The idea of
that's what they were trying to recreate.
Containers, because containers have certain implications.
In
current world, so they're not taking out containers because they don't use kernel level namespacing, which is what containers mean they're using.
But
support
sandbox
again for the end user, it doesn't make any difference. He doesn't know about containers and isolation, so he just has drag and drop, and he can move the file to his hard disk.
And what I like about the sandbox applications with Apple is you can right click an application, show package contents, and you have access to every single file in the sandbox. You have the plist file, and this is how they pirate apps on macOS. Actually, they just delete one file or modify one file. It's a plist file to either inject the license into the package, or they delete that file so it thinks it's registered. I'm not saying I used to do this. I used to be curious to see what.
You just said you used to do this, essentially.
No.
A friend of a friend told me.
No, I was curious enough to right-click and show package contents on one of the pirated apps, and I figured it out that way. I saw that I opened the plist file, and I saw all the license inside the plist file. So I was like, oh, so that's how they pirate their apps on macOS. So I did that with Final Cut Pro because I have a pirated version of Final Cut Pro. I opened it and I saw the license. I copied that license key and that plist file. Basically, I copied it and I download any DMG file directly from Apple. I extract it, inject that plist file into Final Cut Pro, and I automatically have the license version. So
well, that would be a good way to legitimately like keep your keys, transfer keys to different machines.
One thing I'm gonna the reason why I know that containers packages would work as almost anything above the initialization layer is because I know how containers work. Containers are technically closer to kernel than your desktop.
Maybe,
because
I don't know.
No, they are, because containers, especially we're talking about LXC, Docker, and stuff like that use proper kernel level containerization, use what is known as kernel namespacing. Essentially, your computer is cut up into multiple namespaces, multiple worlds, where in one namespace, let's call it namespace 0, is where your desktop is, where your whole user session is, your whatever, your systemd blah blah blah. Yeah, but you have other namespaces. You can have millions of namespaces if you want, and in each of those namespaces you can put another container. And what Docker does, what LXC does, it just controls. It just tells the kernel to put this file system into that namespace, into a new namespace.
It kind of reminds me of a certain virtual machine based distro. I forgot the name of it.
Cubes OS.
Cubes OS, yeah.
The Cubes OS has virtualization. While containerization it keeps the same kernel, just uses separate namespaces for different things.
Yeah, it's Cubes OS basically.
No, it's actually a lot better. But Cubes OS is a standard level virtualization using XAMPP.
Yeah.
So you have separate world, separate separatization, you virtualize separate computers on single computer, which means it uses crap ton of resources.
It does. Because it's basically virtual machines, a lot of virtual machines
so you need to
running.
every time create a new kernel.
Yeah,
It's
so
just
basically,
one kernel.
to run Cubes OS, you need a $20,000 system that will become outdated 2 years later.
You don't need all that, but you are definitely going to need
a lot of RAM.
32 gigs of RAM. I mean,
oh no. My friend tried to run it on his 32 gigs of RAM, and the amount of virtual machines that he needed, he required a minimum of a terabyte of RAM.
Yeah.
Wow. I think there's a slight misconception between virtualization and containerization here.
Yeah.
Because containerization stems from the old change root idea. So that you can
not exactly.
It's one resource the kernel is maintaining, and it's files. So you could actually escape your root, and now you just extend it to everything else, to proceed to process IDs, to every single resource you have in the kernel, and you just start to isolate things. That's basically the same as everything is a file in Unix.
Yeah. Do you guys remember how in old times the servers you could buy did separate servers on a single server, which didn't use virtual machines. They use a system which is essentially is a first kind of containerization, which is it had a separate kernel. Separate kernel you had to install, but it did what is a precursor to containerization. After that, a couple of guys thought of how that could be done a lot better, a lot more secure.
I remember it back in the Windows days, because in the
Windows has some sort of same.
It's called
features,
the Windows namespaces.
That's essentially what is known on Windows. And Windows has the same kernel namespaces.
We used to do it in the Windows world, but then again, I hate to bring that up every time, but we were using a pirated version of Windows Server, so that crashed on us, and the license was dead every month. So we had to maintain that. But other than that, in the here, they don't know anything about Linux. I know all government websites, all the gov.gov websites here, they run on Windows-based servers.
Most of them do.
Yeah, so I'm like, haven't you ever heard of Linux-based servers? They're way more stable and they would just work. They're like, yeah, but we don't know anything about Linux. We only maintain Windows here. So they prefer something they know rather than something they don't know.
And they're stuck in the past.
They're stuck in the past, actually, yeah. So I'm like, I'm using a Linux-based web host. So why don't you do the same?
Hey, Big Pod talking about some of what you can package up as these containerized formats. The Bash shell works perfectly as an app image, Big Pod.
Of course, of course. Makes sense. What I was talking about, the old technology is called OpenVZ.
OpenVC.
VZ, it was how VZ, Open Virtuoso. It's what they used to do to virtualize multiple computers, but using crap ton of memory, which is essentially precursor to current day containerization.
So basically, they have all access to the same hardware that you have, but they separate it into. Okay, so I'm starting to get it now. Well, it's better than Cubes OS.
Yeah.
No, because my friend wanted to, because he's got he prefers a separate instance of a browser for each purpose. One for Amazon, one for YouTube, one for Google, another one for another Google account.
He should use Docker for that. That's what I do. I keep four different Chromes on my system because I have them for 4 different usages, and each one of them is packaged as a separate Docker container.
Yeah.
And I have them integrated into my system just like a normal package.
Yeah, so I don't know why he went to KubesOS, because the way he wanted to do everything, each instance of the browser was going to run in a separate virtual machine. That's why he needed 1 terabyte of RAM. Because
it's a little bit of difference. What KubesOS is, they're not just containerizing a single program. It's like you've got these separate virtual machines that several programs can run within.
Yeah,
they have a separate virtual machine per programming, which is just insane. Why you would do that? I understand why.
I don't know if it's still like this, but the last time I tried it, I think by default it had 4 different virtual domains.
Yeah,
and you could have different groups of packages in each, and it just required so much RAM to run.
They're using Zen. Technically, the desktop is technically a virtual machine.
Yeah, and the desktop environment of KubesOS looks so ancient.
And it is the desktop environment is a separate virtual machine.
Yes,
it's not actually like on a normal desktop. Even if you use virtual machine, your desktop is a desktop. It's directly on the root of the system.
Yeah,
directly on the CPU. Now, with Zen is just a layer that does virtualization. Then everything, even the UI for Zen or console UI for Zen is a separate virtual machine.
Yeah.
So you're essentially, just to run your desktop, you're running two computers essentially.
Yeah,
you're wasting resources for 2 computers.
Exactly. That's why he was looking.
Zen.
That's why he was looking into buying a $10,000 computer, because the only CPU that supported 1 terabyte of RAM was $7,000 CPU with $1,000.
You need a server level CPU.
Yeah. So
KubesOS has always been one of those distributions that I thought was a nice proof of concept, but nobody will ever use it
except Snowden. Except Snowden. Snowden, he's got his resources. He doesn't need to worry about that and that part of the
honestly, if you nowadays, I personally think that in maybe 10 years time, computer will be essentially just a host for VMs.
Yeah, well, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea.
No. I haven't finished. It's not just host for VMs. That will be for when you want local programs. Because
so you're thinking
that's an outdated context. In 10 years, that will be
you're talking like Windows on the cloud.
We're streaming all of our programs.
Yeah,
that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, like Windows on the cloud now. Windows on the cloud service where you can have
something like that. Yes,
an instance.
That's not going to happen on Linux.
No. Linux will be the first one who will adopt something.
No,
like that,
the Linux crowd is actually the reason most people probably switch to Linux is to get away from that everything in the cloud crap that Windows is doing.
I'm going to tell you a secret. In 10 years' time, when this will become popular, Linux people will be the first people who will start running their own servers to have their programs in a separate room, and they will be able to have a phone, a laptop, and a desktop with the exact same system on it. Essentially, it will be a cut down operating system, and then they will just connect to their own server at home, and they will have a phone that has exactly the same data as their desktop, as their laptop, and it will be one seamless experience. And Linux people will be first people who will do that on a self-hosted basis. I can bet you that.
I'm doing this right now through the magic of SSH.
I do this
sitting in my garden.
I do it with the magic of browser and Tailscale.
No, but I find it a little bit idiotic, because who would want to access their desktop via their phone on such a tiny screen?
You know that the reality is that you can have a different interface for different devices.
Well,
if your device is small, you can have just data but different UI. That's the magic we don't understand yet. UI can be a different for different device.
Basically, how Maui Shell is doing things. Basically,
you're just gonna have 3 UIs in your system: a phone UI, a tablet UI, and a computer UI. And if you turn on, if you log in with your phone, you're gonna have a different UI. Gonna have will be calling applications.
But you're still running your desktop applications.
Well, any application can have a different UI. Or
I think what he's saying is you could plug in your phone to your computer and get your computer's data. Say you wanted to read a PDF on the mobile app to read a PDF rather than the
that's
any
feasible.
file.
That's feasible.
And people sometimes want just whether it be a quick thing to change, and if you have a right control scheme, it can be a computer program that you're gonna be able to use if you have the right control scheme.
Yeah.
And look at what kind of phones are coming out on it. In 10 years, those foldable phones will be a thing. You'll have a tablet-sized phone that will go in your pocket.
I hope not.
I hope not. Hippie Daddy, you wanted to say something?
Well, just real quick on this ending. I wish flip phones were the only thing you could use, and all smartphones were destroyed. But that's just my opinion.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean,
they were better.
Well, because I want flip phones everywhere. But
flip phones.
One of the things you were talking about. Yeah, one of the things you were talking about was accessing your computer from your phone. One of the things I used to do before the place I work at, the college I work at, decided to go to a VPN because they said TeamViewer is not secure. Well, okay, I admit that. But I used to access my work computer through TeamViewer on my phone because I have to access the controls to a geothermal plant, chiller controls, stuff like that. And it enabled me to be at the unit outside and monitor what was actually going on within the system using the TeamViewer to tap into the home computer and then piggyback through my remote desktop to do that. But then once they went to a VPN, I had to download a remote desktop to my phone and use it to piggyback into my office computer and do that.
Well,
they're making it harder now because
no, actually, any harder. Just proper systems are used.
The reality is that there are so many companies, especially like the smaller and mid-range companies, that do have these crutch and duct tape processes where somebody accesses something through a sole TeamViewer account. Everybody forgot who signed up for it, but it still works, and there are tons of such things and processes outside, or our all-worthy demon Microsoft Visual Basic. I mean, there's a great YouTube essay from the British mathematician Matt Parker about how spreadsheets attack and how bad Excel sheets and Microsoft Visual Basic.
Visual Basic for applications. Let's be correct, because the Visual Basic and Visual Basic for application are two different things.
True.
Hey, HipDad, were you using I wanted to ask HipDad there on that TeamViewer question. Were you doing that on Linux computers or Windows computers?
They're Windows computers at work. Okay. Now, what they ended up doing is they went to a VPN, Global Protect, and so I got lucky and found out when I switched to nothing but Linux again. I was able to get back to that, which makes me very happy. But I was able to use, what I do is I use Global Protect, I VPN to that, and then I use Remina and use my RDP file that I drug from my home computer and from my work computer, and I piggyback into the work computer, and it has 2 other remote desktops, and I piggyback through the office computer to those to check my systems.
I was actually going to bring up Remina because it's great because you can save your connections and all the details. And
you can just drag the RDP from your Windows computer, and
since
you're
there. Since you're talking about Remina, I never got Remina to work.
Remina is a pain.
It doesn't give me the RDP.
But if you don't get it to work, it's a pain. There are better pieces of software for that.
But
the top of my head.
in Remina, the problem is I don't see the RDP connection. All I see is SSH and some other option. That's it, 2 options. I don't see RDP.
Oh, check the Arch Wiki, because I'm sure you can add all kinds of connections other than just what it defaults to.
Yeah.
So it'll probably be whatever distribution you're on, maybe ships with different builds of it. Yeah.
So I build it. I get it from the Arch repositories. So basically,
But yeah, by default, there's only like 2 or 3 different forms of connection.
2.
But but you can. I'm sure you can add other.
The one I'm using now for local computers is No Machine. No Machine for local computers, it just works. Install it and just open it. It will detect. It will do all the hard work for you. But it doesn't allow outside in. It's just for local.
For RDP support, it says install the free RDP package for RDP.
One
RDP.
thing, the VPN, that's an important part. Like, we all know what VPNs are today. They're the thing to be secure on internet, even though you're technically not any more secure than you were before, because reality.
No,
that they are not allowed to advertise for it anymore.
Thankfully, because it's a giant lie.
Yeah. Their market claim currently is that you basically can unlock geo blocks for Netflix. That's their current marketing claim.
Yeah,
because you're not any more secure.
This is their claim to fame.
Yeah,
and the fact that they don't tell you that they're collecting all your data in the meantime. No, we don't collect your data. But when you go to your account, you see all the websites you visited, all the locations you piggybacked off of. You see everything over there, and you're like, what they just told me. They sold me on the idea that I can watch whatever in Netflix, but they didn't tell me anything about keeping my data. And then when you ask them about it, they tell you, oh, we keep it temporarily.
One thing I recommend is, if you need to connect multiple computers that are in separate locations, what you should use is something called, people go with VPN for that. I say don't go for a VPN, because VPN uses a VPN concentrator, which is a horrible concept, because that's where how much power you have on that system, all that will tell you how fast your connection can be between the devices, because you have to go through one machine.
Yeah.
What you should use is called overlay networking, which relies on VPN concepts, something like Nebula, Tailscale, Zero Tier, whichever one it is. It uses techniques like UDP hole punching and not traversal to get from, without opening any ports, from any machine, to connect all the machines in your overlay network. And that's the best way of doing this kind of a thing.
That's too complicated. Everything should just be SSH and X forwarding.
No,
let's keep it simple.
No.
A tunnel, maybe, not X forwarding.
You should.
I'm just gonna recommend.
That means you need to open ports. Reality is you need to open ports for that. With something like Tailscale or Nebula, you don't have to open any ports, except if you're using Nebula, you have to have one server that has a couple of ports open, so you can have a database. It is doing so you can exchange keys. That's it. And if you're using Tailscale, it's a paid service that basically does it for you. Same with Zero Tier. It's essentially the future of proper VPNs, because you can, whether it is your phone, your laptop, your desktop, it's all then magically the same network, and it has peer-to-peer direct WireGuard connections. So if you type, let's say you're on your phone and you want to access some file on your desktop, you copy it. It doesn't go to some third-party service to then go to your computer. It goes from your phone. It directly connects to your computer. That's the good part. So there is no chance there is some service that will see what you're doing, because they have no data. That all the third-party service does, it collects who is connected. So it's a essentially control plane that says who is connected, and it stores keys, so you can add. So when your phone as the service, what is the key for this computer? It just gives you the key back, and that's it. And since it's all encrypted by a password, nothing, even they can't see that. Just this is the key, and then it connects directly to the computer. And it works over net. It works over the CGNet, any kind of. As long as you have connection to internet, it will work.
Well, switching topics just very briefly. In the last month, have any of you guys, I don't know if any of you guys have any Linux Mint machines, have you upgraded to the latest version 21?
I haven't used Mint in many years.
Nope.
I've got it on a gateway computer, but it's in a drawer sitting there going, use me, please.
Because I upgraded, obviously, in a virtual machine. I keep a virtual machine around. I video recorded it on a video yesterday, and I've got a bunch of physical machines for various people that I've installed Linux Mint for. And I wanted to do it in the virtual machine before actually doing it on some of their physical machines. And I just love the little graphical tool that these guys have put in there. It comes up. It's going to run the version upgrade, change you from version 20 to version 21, change all the mirrors and install the new packages, upgrades like 1,800 packages on the Cinnamon edition. Before it ever starts it, though, you get a prompt, which is I thought was really smart because you should do this anyway, but they don't let you bypass it. It comes up with, hey, would you like to create a time shift snapshot? And you pretty much have to click OK. And then, you time shift opens, you create the snapshot.
That's pretty good, because if you upgrade, anytime I've ever went to a version upgrade for Ubuntu, it's always crashed and I've had to do a clean.
I was going to say the same thing. When I was an Ubuntu user, I never upgraded. I always did fresh installs because they tended to break the upgrades.
Yep.
So I just quit doing them.
No. I've gone for last few years. I've gone. One of my systems has been upgraded one after another. Haven't reinstalled once.
Mm-hmm. Well, you are a miracle. You're a miracle, young man.
I'm not. People do that.
No, they've gotten better. They've gotten better in recent years.
You don't do sudo apt dist upgrade. You do through their software. Do release upgrade, and it does.
That's what I did.
When I used back in the day, when I used to use Mint. I never upgraded from one major version to the other. I used to do exactly like DT used to do, fresh install.
Well, Mint was the same as Ubuntu as far as the upgrades either didn't work, or actually Mint didn't really have a good upgrade path until really just a few years ago.
I'll grab the gateway out and because it's probably 2 versions down.
Yeah, because if it's not version 19 at least, you're not going to be able to use the Mint upgrade tool. But if it's 19, you can use it to upgrade to 20 and then use it again to upgrade 20 to 21.
You got me curious.
But you'd probably just want to format at that point if it's been that long.
The last time I used Mint was Mint 15. 1501, 15 something. But if you upgrade to a major upgrade after 6 months or however long it takes to come up with a major upgrade, I used to do a fresh install because I was like, it's not because it didn't work. I never tried it. It's because I was like, it's about time to clean install. Because every 6 months is a long time.
Well, it's a good idea because you got extra crap just hanging out on your file system, files you forgot about, or packages, and
there's something there's something I want to mention that I just discovered about Windows. I wish Linux had. I think in time Linux will integrate that feature. But you remember how in the olden days you used to right-click properties on a hard drive on Windows and click disk cleanup, and it gives you this dialog to clean up your temporary files and trash.
Yeah.
Well, now it has evolved way past that. Now it has on Windows 11. It's got a beautiful UI where it shows you temporary files versus previous Windows update files and stuff like that. It's very well organized. We don't have anything except something like what's it called, that Qt application.
Didn't you
Pacer,
review one of these Electron apps?
It's Stacer, but it was an Electron app, but they've recently rewrote it using C++ and
Okay.
I haven't used on Windows that in so long because why the hell do I need to?
I use it frequently because I have 128 gig NVMe for my Windows, so I need to keep it empty as much as I can. But if Linux had something baked in, like something like that, you just...
Well, the problem with Windows is all of that is part of the Windows desktop environment, where on Linux, everything is its own small piece. Your file manager, you can choose any file manager, and the program it would run to do that cleanup could be Stacer, it could be there's a dozen of them things out there. Right, they're not all the same. You pick and choose the components you want.
That's another problem I want, another discussion I wanted to go into. I'm going to make it as short as possible because it's a big discussion. Is a lot of YouTubers, including DT, maybe you made a video, I don't remember, but do we have too many Linux distros?
Yes.
I go with the camp of yes, because too much choice equals confusion. Just give the right amount of choice, but not too much choice. That's the philosophy I adopted on Zero Linux as of late. Don't give too much choices. Give just the
too much choice. It's different depending on the person. I would say don't give a brand new user too much choice. Like when I install Linux on people's, I just mentioned, I install Linux Mint on a lot of machines. I install mainline Ubuntu on a lot of machines. I install Linux Lite. I've used it for years on people's equipment. And I don't even tell them what I'm putting on their machines. I don't even mention that there's multiple versions of Linux. I put something on that laptop. Here you go.
No, but...
And they love it. They're not confused by anything. We haven't had any conversations about desktop environments or any of that crap.
Of course.
They wouldn't understand it if I had that conversation. They just get something. Oh, this is neat.
That's it.
I never hear from them again.
Yeah, but once okay, let me put it this way. For the curious people, too much choice can create confusion. Like we have 1,000 applications that do exactly the same thing. They're dressed up differently, but underneath it, it's the exact same thing. You got a million different desktop environments. That is a different discussion. But for example, like Arco Linux,
it's all part of the same discussion. But yeah, we'll say
no, but a bigger part of that discussion.
Yeah.
It's called paradox of choice.
Paradox of choice, exactly. Like Arco Linux.
More.
Yeah, less is more. Hicks law, but the like a new user comes to Arco Linux. He's got 26 ISOs for each desktop environment, a different ISO. Or window managers and stuff like that. Users are gonna feel overwhelmed and they're gonna, oh, this is too much. I will skip to another distro and another distro until they narrow it down to a distro that doesn't have too much choice. This is where fragmentation is true, but there are some areas where it's not fragmentation.
But if Arco Linux, if Arco Linux didn't have those 26 different ISOs, people like me wouldn't bother using it, because that's the reason I started using
it depends
it depends on the person, right?
Yeah, like you said, it depends on the person.
A new user, Arco Linux is not for like a brand new day one Linux user.
But a lot of people are new users.
Because they wouldn't know what the 26 different window managers are.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I'm saying a lot of the users
it's for people like
new.
me. Yeah, and the new user, I'll tell the new. I just give the new user something.
If you give blindly to a new user something without knowing, that's different. But if you tell a new user, it's different when you tell a new user, go with this distro. They will go to this distro and they will suddenly get overwhelmed with 26 different ISOs. They're like,
that's people. You do have a lot of people in the community that give bad advice as far as distributions people should try as a first distribution.
Yeah.
I mean, typically I tell people, and just use Ubuntu, just use Mint. Just, if you want to try Manjaro for a rolling release, I don't think that's a bad choice either. But I wouldn't, like the people that say crazy things like Slackware Gen 2 or whatever crazy stuff people sometimes recommend.
I recommend Mint, but not the cinnamon, the regular Mint, the Mint built on Debian.
I would do Mint or Ubuntu. as far as
I
rookies
recommend,
and maybe
for me,
even
standard is Ubuntu.
There are 4 distributions that I tend to put on people's equipment when they bring me their machines. I've used Ubuntu, mainline Ubuntu a lot, Linux Mint, usually with Cinnamon, although sometimes I'll use XFCE. Linux Lite has XFCE if I do XFCE. And then I do, and people are going to trash me for this, but if they have a good machine and they like something flashy with a lot of bling, Deepin. I've actually installed on some people's machines. It's a Debian-based distribution, and it looks good.
Wait. It's not complete yet.
What are you talking about? Deepin's been around for years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not feature-rich, basically. It's very basic.
It's more feature-rich than something like Elementary, which a lot of people, which I don't hate Elementary. But it's
Elementary, anything is more
but a lot of people love Elementary. It's for the Apple crowd. It's for the Mac crowd. Yeah. They love things like Elementary, and they love things like Deepin. And I'll put them on it, and
did you hear,
no complaints.
Did you guys hear the bad news about Pop OS like today?
No.
No.
Pop OS are no longer working on their on the new release. They're working on their Rust desktop environment.
Yeah,
the Cosmic desktop.
Yeah, now they're not gonna have a release in autumn anymore. They're just in fall anymore.
That makes sense.
They're just pushing it because they no longer want to push anything using somebody else's code. They want to ship it instead with their brand new Rust-based.
It's one of the things I think when a distribution maintains both a distribution and they maintain their own desktop environment and suite of software, I think some of these distributions suffer from it. I think the Linux Mint team, they have so much work to do building Cinnamon and all their apps, and then they're also trying to maintain this distribution. Sometimes one suffers for the other. I think that's part of the problem why Elementary kind of fell apart. They're trying to create the Pantheon desktop environment and trying to maintain a distribution at the same time. That's tough work, especially for a small team.
So this is why for me, like somebody on the chat mentioned the other day, I don't call Zero Linux a distro. I call it XDE, the zero desktop environment. Because I did so much to KDE, it's no longer KDE anymore. It's I tweaked it so much that it's no longer vanilla KDE. He calls it XDE. I was like, I wish I could work on my own desktop environment. I had the skills, I would, because a lot of those desktop environments out there suffer from not being. They're concentrating on features, the bugs increase and increase and increase and increase. So
I would say probably don't create your own desktop environment because there's so many out there. I would find an existing one and try to.
That's
because I've learned enough at this point with how GTK apps work, and like if I wanted to create my own GTK based desktop environment, create my own panel and menu system, I mean maybe a couple of custom apps, I could probably spend a few months and get something up and running. But why would I? Yeah. What would I accomplish that already hasn't been accomplished out there? But
start making themes. Yeah, start making themes. I think one of the things they need to do is have a theme packaging system to where you can grab just like theming for GetDeb, have Get Theme to where it all goes into one folder and you can just theme the crap out of your.
The problem with GTK themes is the GNOME team has made GTK theming a nightmare.
It's actually GNOME team. There isn't actually a bunch of.
They're never complete.
No, it's not.
It's because people work on them, and then before they even get it complete, the new version breaks everything, and then people get frustrated. Why am I even fooling with this? That's why nobody spends time theming for GTK, because they're just going to break it anyway. Everything defaults to Adwaita. Why?
For example,
it's because that's the only one that ever works.
For example, on KDE. The developers that create themes for KDE, like for example the guy behind Layan theme and Orcus theme and all these themes, he's like he creates a theme for Qt apps, GTK apps, Kvantum apps. He creates multiple. He creates his theme for multiple different engines and environments. and that's becoming, it's getting its toll on him, because he can no longer maintain the GTK theme, because GTK are falling back to Advaita. So the GTK theme will work on GTK2 to GTK3, but as soon as everything switches to GTK4, which uses the Advaita thing, all their GTK themes are going to become useless. And
yeah, for the entire life cycle of GTK3, theming for GTK3 was just a nightmare. Like, we never had any good themes because people just didn't want to waste their time with it, because every new version broke something.
Yeah.
So I hope GTK4 doesn't continue.
That's what they're trying to do. They're going to. They're trying to unify the thing. So theming for libadwaita will become something unified. It's no longer going to be broken between elements. And they're getting flack for it. I see that wrong. You shouldn't give libadwaita flack, because they're doing things right. They're making it easier for you. On the contrary, they're making it easier to theme, not harder. But because everything is relying on the GTK3 mentality of doing things, or GTK2 of doing things, they're hating on libadwaita because it's forcing them to do more work to make.
Well, a lot of people that hate on that, just hate everything that GNOME does.
They shouldn't,
everything.
Because GNOME are. Here's the thing: I used to hate GNOME a lot.
Well, it's the same thing with the System D crowd and the anti-snap crowd. You have those people. Those people don't matter. They're going to complain about things anyway.
Yeah, but I used to hate GNOME as well, because I couldn't. When I opened my Nautilus, for example, I couldn't right-click, create blank document. I could create folders, but no blank documents like I can do on every single file manager out there.
Yeah, it's because they changed it to where you have to have templates now.
Now you can. Template. They fixed that. They fixed that. Now all my issues that I used to rant about related to GNOME, they're all gone. GNOME is thousands of times better. It's leaps beyond what I expected it to be.
I'll have to agree with him.
I built Zero Linux yesterday with the GNOME desktop environment just for me. It's not public. It's never going to see the light of day. It's just for me to test GTK4.
Don't ask for it.
Don't ask for it. It's never going to come up. But it's for me to test GTK4, and because Eric made it so easy to build with his ALCI script. But I just replaced the KDE packages with the GNOME packages. But I'm liking what I'm seeing. It's like, okay, they're adopting something like Apple mentality of having something that just works, that doesn't break all over the place into a million pieces. I've been shipping Zero Linux with KDE for 2 years now, and almost 2 years, and I'm seeing KDE having more issues than GNOME actually having.
Yeah.
Because GNOME they have one philosophy, and they're adopting this philosophy, which is we only adopt things that work, that we think works with our system. Whereas the GNOME mentality is anything you give us, we'll integrate. You have an idea, we'll integrate it. Give us everything.
The problem with what you're saying, the difference with KDE and GNOME is GNOME has the advantage as far as almost every major distribution will typically ship with the GNOME desktop environment. There's not that many really big distributions that ship with Plasma anymore.
Yeah.
And especially when you have big corporate distributions like Ubuntu and Fedora and things like that ship with GNOME. And obviously, all their focus is developing GNOME and related technologies. That's the problem why Plasma lags behind a little bit.
Yeah, because they're trying to integrate way too much, way too fast. Right. It's like you throw at them a crappy idea. They say, okay, because they want to be big, they get, okay, we'll integrate that. We'll worry about how it breaks and how to fix it later on. We'll integrate. While putting too many rocks one on top of the other it's bound to fall at some point. Whereas GNOME, they just integrate they have more control over what they integrate. into their desktop environment. And I like this philosophy.
I like the plasma philosophy. Yeah, I don't care if you stack all the rocks and they fall apart. I'll take the rocks that I want. I'll put them back together how I want. At least I have the rocks. With GNOME, you got like 3 rocks. Right?
Well, for a stable system, for a stable desktop environment, like if you want to install something on somebody's computer and you don't want to hear from them again, you go with something that runs GNOME. You don't go with something that runs KDE Plasma.
I do want to address something in the chat. Adil or Adil, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Plasma is so slow and buggy. Plasma is definitely not slow.
No.
So there's probably, maybe your installation is broken or there's some hardware issues, because Plasma, compared to most other desktop environments, is actually
I can
pretty
have an
light.
input because I've been Zero Linux is based on Plasma. We got Plasma using less than 600 megabytes on cold boot, and it flies on computers that are over 10 years old.
Yeah, I've had it using 500 megs of RAM. Plasma is slow and buggy. I will say
it depends on the distro how they ship.
And are you an NVIDIA user? Because some of your graphical glitching could be.
No, and I'm an NVIDIA user. It doesn't glitch, but it's how the distro ships Plasma. It all boils down to the configuration that is shipped per distro. Some distros, like I'm gonna name it Garuda, for example, is heavy. Why? Because they ship everything.
But they've got a lot of blur. They've got all the effects turned on.
All the effects turned on. It depends on what distro and what the configuration is shipped on the distro. You cannot blame a desktop environment on something
like the weird Gaussian blur that Garuda uses. That uses so much CPU. If you got a decent machine, it's all right. But if you got like a potato,
it causes the CPU to spike all the time.
Turn that off if you got a potato, because it will cause your machine to lock up.
Like I integrated the burn. I don't know if DT you heard of that. Don't make a video about it, even if now I'm telling you about it, because it's not worth it. Something called Burn My Windows. It's a series. It's a package of multiple effects. Going back to the what's the one before KWin?
About Compiz back in the day with all the wobbly windows and drawing fire on the screen.
Yes, that's the one. I ship it on Zero Linux, but it's not enabled. I don't make the same mistake as Garuda. I don't enable it. I give the option to the user, but it's there.
I miss the rain puddle effect, where it would look like drops of rain were hitting your screen.
They just updated it. They just updated it to include the Doom effect, the Doom pixel effect. You know this when the scene changes and it drops with pixels. Now they included that, but only use it and enable it if you have 16 gigs of RAM and a very powerful GPU, because otherwise you're gonna have a bad time. So this is what I'm talking about. If you get a distro with Plasma, with all these effects enabled, and you have a potato, of course you're going to complain about slowness. And
just turn all the compositing effects off.
Just turn the compositor off altogether.
Yeah, but that could...
It makes games run faster.
No.
I wouldn't turn it. I wouldn't turn the compositor off, because especially for games, watching videos and watching YouTube and stuff like that.
I ship Zero Linux with Auto Composer off. What this does is whatever application you have in full screen, it will turn the compositor off, and the performance will double.
Well, guys, we've just got a few minutes here until the top of the hour, the end of the 2 hours here. And since we've got a good group of people here, let's all take a minute and give us a last word on our way out. So, Big Pod, you want to say anything before we go? You haven't mentioned anything about rockets. You haven't said anything about JavaScript.
No. I ran Plasma on my work laptop. I switched to GNOME. That's all you need to know.
I was wondering where he was going with it. So you're no longer on Mate, huh?
On work laptop, I need something that runs Valent, because I have a touchscreen.
Oh, well, yeah, you're limited then.
Yeah.
But just GNOME and Plasma. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, that's why I'm glad I'm not a Wayland user, because I wouldn't want to face that limitation. Which one do I choose? I choose Plasma. All right. Anything else, Big Bud?
We're still waiting for the moon rocket to fly. So maybe next month we'll have some better news.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. Dark Zero, give us the last word.
My last word will be this time around: haters, please don't hate. Help Linux grow, and the less hate you give it, the faster it will grow. We need it to grow. We need to move away from Windows and rely on Windows for whatever, not even the tiniest thing. If we want to adapt Linux for everything and push hardware manufacturers to make drivers for all our hardware, make it big, make it grow, stop hating, help each other out, and show some love.
Right tool, right situation.
Right tool, right situation. I should make a t-shirt. All right. Stefan, give us the last word.
Well, thanks for the hangout and chat with you guys. Always appreciate talking and hearing all those vast and interesting opinions. The only thing I'd like to add for this month is that self-care is important, and since you also made an awareness video about that, about burnout and topics, make sure to get enough rest, make sure to go outside sometimes and move a little, try to eat clean and fresh, and especially for the winter times, make sure to take care for yourselves.
Wise words.
Stefan just told all you nerds to go outside and touch some grass.
I gotta force myself to. I gotta admit, I really have to force myself, but it's worth it.
So it's gonna be cold soon outside. So
one other thing I want you to do. One other thing, Stefan, I've got a big bucket of zip ties, these plastic zip ties for cable management. I could send you some if you need.
I got a couple, but I gotta plug and replug so much hardware all the time. It's a constant mess, but at least the file system's clean. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks for hanging out with us. Yep, Dad, give us the last word, sir.
Say no to no borrow. No. The old gateway that I fired up, it has LND 5 on it, so I can't upgrade it to Mint 21. But yeah, I mean, haters be haters, and don't even hate the haters. Just, everybody has their own opinion. Just everybody use what you want and what you love and what works for you. Just, no reason to tell me what I need to use. I mean, I use what works.
Exactly my point. Like now I'm taking a break of Linux, Windows, then go back to Linux, but a breath of fresh air, Windows.
Oh, okay. I changed my opinion. There is one thing. Haters be hating. Okay, why don't you just hate Windows, period. Just hate Windows, please. Hate it with a passion. Hate it to the point where it just goes away. Thank you.
Well, thank you for hanging out with us, HipDead. Andreas.
Thanks for hanging out. It was fun. If you want to have a window manager of all time, I don't know if you guys know the project Cool Retro Term, which gives you this exactly blurry feeling. And after 10 minutes, you desire to get away from the screen and get outside.
You will hate it. Yeah. Depending on what you have it set to, your eyes will be begging for mercy.
The yellow screen is pretty much like my first computer. It has resemblance.
You have one behind you.
Yes.
But yeah, I remember those amber monochrome monitors from like the mid 1980s, and it replicates those things almost perfectly.
Yeah.
And that's not a good thing.
Mine still works, by the way. That's.
Does it still have the line that sometimes travels through the screen?
The bleed line.
The bleed line, yeah.
Some humming.
The hum, yeah, I forgot about. Yeah, those monitors did have an electric hum to them.
I do wish I still had my. Yeah, I do wish I still had my CPM 80 machine. I love that machine.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us, George. Are you there? Would you like to give us the last word, sir?
Yeah, thanks again for hosting and that entertaining Saturday, a couple hours on a Sunday. If I was thinking about it when people would bring up Gentoo, I'm like, if you say Gentoo 3 times, you might summon Joshua. And also, we're one Patreon chat closer to Edge OS.
What was it?
I said we're one Patreon chat closer to an Edge OS.
All right. Well, I need to get my last word in, and my last word, of course, is thanking you guys for hanging out with me on camera. We had a bunch of people that were here earlier on camera that dropped out. I want to thank those guys too. I want to thank the YouTube chat. I know we didn't interact very much with the YouTube chat, but you guys are always great. I do want to thank the patrons that couldn't be here, so I'm going to show some names on the screen. This list is not updated because this is my home computer, not the office computer, but it's pretty close. But I do know some of the ones
you need to upgrade
that are not here, and I will actually just mention that some of the people that have subscribed in the last few days that I know are not on this list are Nate, Tracy, Dave, Lars, Sean, and C. Harper. I appreciate you guys. I know you guys are not on this screen, but you guys will be on this screen coming up here in a few days. Other than that, I have no idea what I just did here.
Did you break anything?
I think I did. I think I broke something. You know what? I don't know. I would say, guys, wave bye to YouTube, but I think we've already messed this up.